Hello everyone, and welcome to the demo for creating W3C XML schemas for publishing applications. This is going to be a parallel to the demo that I did for the DTD. And what I've done in my virtual machine, which we're in right now, is to create a directory that has just about what we're looking for to get started, okay? And I called it demo W3C XML blah blah blah, and I open it up. And as usual, I've created a project here because I find that really works. You know, that's what I really like to do, and I'd like to get you in the habit of creating an Oxygen project too, if you could. So I'm going to open that up with a double click. And because the product's already open, usually in the Mac, it doesn't want to maximize, so I have to click it to maximize it. And here we are. I have a directory called Content and Schemas that I have added into the project. And in it, I've got a document called Revised Only Write Article. And let's open up that. Okay. And as you can see, this is the second version of the content document that I created for the content that I have on the homepage of the Only Write website. And instead of having the mixed content in the paragraphs, instead of enclosing some of the text with a link element, I decided to be a little more semantically rich and use a person element, a structure element, and that might be all that I have, person and structure. And then I've got normal links for the rest of them, a plain old HTML A tag. All right, so that's the document. I currently have it connected via a doc type statement to the DTD for article, and let's just take a quick look at that. And this is something that I reviewed with you already. Okay, and it's not real different from the DTDs that we use for data interchange, except that it's got the content model pattern for mixed content here for some of the elements. Okay, and what I'm going to want to do is to create the same effect with the W3C XML schema. So let's do this. Oh, I just want to prove that it works too. So let's go and back to the document and click on the check mark. And you can see down here at the bottom that it validates just fine. All right, that's good. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to close the tab for the DTD. I am going to say I want to create a new schema. So how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to go to the menu, and I'm going to say File, New, and let's just go to New, oh, there it is, right under the recently used XML schema. I like that. Create. And let's look at the text side. There's not a whole lot of content in here. And let's save it, File, Save As. And I'm just going to call it article, just like we called the DTD. Okay? And that looks good. Okay. And I don't have too much in here. All right, that looks like the basic shell that we would use for a schema. And let's begin by saving that and going back to the article document. And we've got to find a way to attach the schema file. So let's get rid of the doc type that attaches the DTD file. And let's do the easy way. Let's go up to Document and Schema, Associate Schema. Okay, and let's open the folder here on the top and just point at this new article.xsd. Tell it to use a path relative expression to point at the file, and let's just say OK. And it looks like it did the right thing. We have a declaration for I'm sorry, on the root element there is an attribute which declares the namespace for the prefix XSI, and that's schema instance, and you can see the URI, which is a URL form of URI, points to schema instance. And then we have one attribute that's in that new namespace, that's no namespace schema location, and that points us to article.xsd, which is in the same directory. Now, let's save that, and let's try to do a validation, and it's going to fail, and it can't find the declaration of the element article, and that's not too surprising because the schema is really empty right now. So let's go back and put in a declaration for the element article. So let's start out with XS, element, name equals article, and let's just say for now, let's say type equal, and let's just use the built-in string type, XS string. Okay, so we say that, well, it actually has a lot of sub-element content. So all I'm expecting to do when I go back over and validate is I'm going to want to see symptoms that it has a declaration for article. It's just not matching the content model of XS string. So let's go take a look. We'll save the schema. We'll go back over to the document, the XML document. We'll validate and see what happens to the error message. It says that element article is a simple type, so it must not have no element information item children. So, oh great, we are properly connected to our schema. We just don't have enough coded into it yet. So let's get started with that. Okay? Now, I know it sounds like I harp on this, but when we declare an element, we have to give it a name and we have to give it a type. Either we're going to point to a type, either one of the built-in ones or a custom one that we're going to declare ourselves at this top level or global level, or we're going to enclose a local definition. Now, in this case, let's enclose a local definition. So we don't need the type attribute to enclose a local definition. Okay. Oh, went a little too far with that. Okay, so is article going to be simple or complex? Well, because it has sub-element content, we know it's complex. So let's do an XS complex type. All right, that's good. And then what's going to be inside it? Well, typically in your typical XML document, you have a sequence. So let's say we have a sequence. Sorry, it's an XS sequence. XS sequence. Okay. I'm sorry, we don't really need to have any attributes on that. And let's see what kind of things we have in the sequence. We have the title and we have the body. And do we have anything else inside, directly inside? Now, we have a lot of things inside the body, but for right now, in the article, we have title and body. Okay, let's go back and make that happen. So we're going to declare the first element in the sequence, XS element, and it's going to have a name, and that's going to be equal title. Okay, and it's going to have just a string type. Okay, so let's say type equal XS string. Okay, and we don't need to enclose any information, so let's make this an empty element form to make it very terse, just like we like it. So we have title, and then we have to have body. Let's think about body. It's another XS element. Okay, name equals body. Now, what about the type? Well, it's not a simple type. There was a whole bunch of nested subcontent there. So either we're going to declare the definition for body inline as a local type, or if we would like to refer to it with a type name, we can declare it at the top level in the schema and have it be a global type. So let's do that. So let's say type equals, and let's just call it body type, because that's the form that we've been using all along. And this looks like a pretty good declaration for the article element so far. Okay, but let's just go look and see if there's any other information, like does article have any attributes on it? And the only attributes on article are the ones that have to do with the schema, and we don't have to code those. So we're fine there. So I think we have a good definition for article and title. Now we need to get into body. Well, let's just look what can come inside of a body. Inside of a body, we have a P for paragraph. Okay. And we have a UL for our unordered list. And that's all we have. So P and UL. So let's go in and put in the definition of our global type. And here I'm finding the indentation is not really working in a reliable way. So I'm going to first save my file, and I'm going to go up to the toolbar and click on Format and Indent. And it looks like the standard indent's a little bit farther than I had that code that was already in there. So I'm going to let that happen. And now let's put in the declaration for a complex type. So this one's going to have a name. It's going to be body type. Okay. And it's only because it has a name and it occurs at this top global level of the document that we're able to refer to it in the previous grouping. And if you look, as soon as we put in the definition for complex type, this red squiggly line that we had when we referred to body type has gone away because, oh, I found the definition for body type. And again, it's going to be a sequence. So let's say that this is going to be a sequence. Okay. And are things always going to be in the same order? And so we have to ask ourselves. And the fact is that we said that we can have paragraphs, more than one, okay? And we said that we can have unordered lists, because that's all we have so far. Maybe at a later time we'll come back and add some other text-based stuff that we borrow from the HTML tag set. We can have those, but what comes first? And how many can we have? Well, I'd like to be able to intersperse unordered lists and paragraphs pretty freely, okay? And the way that we normally do that is this, okay? We say that we have a choice. So we have excess choice. Right? And we say one of the things that we can choose is excess element name equals P. Okay. And what kind of type does it have? Well, it's not just going to have plain text in it, so we better give it a custom type. So let's say type equals paragraph type. I know we called it P, but that's only because that's what it's called in HTML, and we want it to be consistent with that. Okay? So we have that. And so that sounds good. And let's make that an empty element. Okay. And we're going to have the same thing for unordered list. Okay. So let's copy this and put this down here. And this one's not going to be a P. We're going to clone it and make it a UL. Okay, so we've got those two. They're both paragraph, and that, of course, that's not going to be a paragraph type anymore. Let's call this, let's spell it out, unordered list type. Okay, so we've got these. Now, how many of these can we have, and in what order? Well, we can pretty much have these as many as we want in any order. So the choice will give us in any order. And I don't remember whether we can put a min occurs right here in the choice. Yes, we can. So min occurs equal, let's say 1. We have to have something in there. Okay, and let's say max occurs equals unbounded. Okay, and we'll say that because we want to have as many paragraphs or unordered lists as we want. And we do have this idea that, maybe we will decide eventually that we're going to have ordered lists like we do in HTML, and we might have some other constructs. But for right now, let's just create the things that we need to validate the document that we have. Okay? So that's going to do it. We just say have a choice that happens over and over again, and that's going to be either a P or a UL. So that's going to allow us to have P, 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 UL, 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 P, UL, P, UL, UL, P, UL, P. It's going to have all kinds of possibilities, just what we want. All right. That's good. Okay, so that's looking good. Now, let's just go back over to the document and do a validation and see if it cleans up at all. And it's cleaned up a bit. It still has problems, though. A lot of the errors have gone away, and that's really very satisfying. But it says, cannot resolve the name paragraph type and cannot resolve the name unordered list type when it's working on the schema. Okay, so, but we don't have a lot of things lighting up right now, which is good. So let's go back to the schema and let's close this message window we get from the validation to get a little more room to work. And now we're going to have to create 2 custom types, paragraph type and unordered list type. So they're both going to be complex types because they're both going to have sub-element content, and that's automatically going to make them complex type. So let's create an XS complex type because we're pointing to it from another declaration in the schema. Then it has to have a name, and we have to declare it up at this top level, global level. So let's declare paragraph type. All right. And what's in a paragraph but a sequence? No, it's not. It's mixed content again. How about that? And we saw in the lecture that in this way that we do it, I'm taking a peek at the lecture slide, kind of cheating. We saw in the lecture we had a paragraph, we called it paragraph type, and the complex type said right on the definition that it had, it said mixed equal true. So let's just say complex type mixed equal, and let's pick true. So what that's going to allow is that's going to allow characters throughout the paragraph, okay? And that's going to take care of the running text. Well, what is going to take care of the enclosing elements, the modifiers, if you will? Well, a choice. And again, I am really cheating by looking at the slide, slide number 227, and I'm saying, oh, I'm going to have an XS choice, not XSW choice, but XS choice, and we're going to have a min occurs 0, max occurs unbounded. That means these sub elements might not occur, or they might occur as many times as we need them to occur, right? So that says we're going to have a choice of the sub-elements, and that's going to happen over and over again. And now there are 3 sub-elements to choose from: equipment, supply, and warning. So we declare those the way we normally would. Access element name equals equipment, and it has to have some type, and it has a simple type. It can just have text. So type equals access string. Okay, and we don't need to enclose anything, so we'll make it an empty element. And now we're going to have 2 others that have that same format but different names. And I'd like to encourage you to be lazy here. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy paste this twice and simply change the name. So we wanted equipment, supply, and warning. So let's do that. Equipment, supply, and warning. And that should take care of the paragraphs. So again, let's go back and see whether that solved any problems that we had in our paragraphs. Okay, well, let's validate again. And okay, you know what's so funny is I copied the elements out of the lecture. Isn't that foolish? Well, I want you to be lazy, but not that lazy. So it isn't equipment, supply, and paragraph. It is person, right? It is person, and it is structure, right? Because in the Only Right portal, we have persons and we have structures. And are they just strings? Well, no, they're not, because they have a URL associated with them. So they're going to have, okay, they're going to have a type. Now, I could, if I wanted to, make these be pretty similar types, but let's not do that. Let's say type equals person type. I think this is the best way. And structure equals structure type. Okay, so we've got these 2. And that should pretty much take care of it, okay? So, again, we've got the paragraph. And let's come in here and close up some of the empty space. So, we're saying that, let's sort of review this. Mixed equal true on the complex type for paragraph type says, within the paragraph, we have mixed content, so allow running text. And then the choice that we put inside the complex type with min_curse equals 0 and max_curse equals unbounded says, oh, and sprinkled in with that running text, we can have the sub-elements, person and structure, in any order as many times as we deem appropriate. Okay, well that looks good. Now we need to come up with a definition for person type. So let's do that. Is person type a simple type or a complex type? Well, it's usually, if you had to guess, always guess complex. Because the only thing that can be a simple type is just a plain old string. Now, person type is more than just a plain old string because it has an attribute, right? If we go back and look at the document, okay, and we look for person, we see that it has a URL attribute. Okay, so that makes it complex automatically. So we're going to need XS complex type, and the name is going to be person type. Okay, and we don't have any mixed content within it. It's going to hold only text. So it's going to be a sequence, sorry, an XS sequence. XS sequence, come on now. All right. And what's it going to be a sequence of? Well, it's going to be the person. It's going to have an XS element that's a person. Okay. And a sequence of one might seem like a trivial version of a sequence, and it really is. I mean, it's hard for the average person on the street to think of we can have a sequence of one thing, because typically before we have a sequence we have two. It's like saying that you can have a line that is designated by a point. No, you need 2 points for a line. Well, we can have, in the schema language, we can have a sequence of one. And just get used to it. Think of it as the trivial case. So XS element name equals, well, person, okay? And person is going to need a type or enclose a type. Well, it's just a string, so type equals XS string. That's fine. And we're not going to have to enclose anything there, so let's put a slash at the end. Okay, and now we need an attribute. So where does that go? Well, there's part of me that always wants to put it on top of the sequence element, but it goes below the sequence element. So we just put in here, right underneath, XS attribute. Okay, and we're going to say name equals, and we were using URL in caps. Okay, and type equals, and we're just going to use our old buddy XS string. Okay, so now the person type works pretty well here. Okay, that's going to take care of the person sub elements, and you know, structure is going to be very similar to that. So instead of trying to come up with some kind of shareable type for those two, I'm just going to clone the person type and change some names. And hopefully I won't do so badly as I did before when I got confused between the lecture example and the demo example. Okay, so we're going to call this structure type. And we're going to call the element structure. And the attribute's still going to be called URL. Well, that looks pretty good, right? So this should take all of the paragraph content and make it properly validate. So let's go back in and try to validate it. Okay. Well, it's validating. Okay. Well, I see we have the person. And what's the complaint about person? Don't see what that is, but let's see. The content of element person is not complete. One of person is expected. That's not working. That's not working at all. Wow, you're seeing the instructor get into trouble all by himself. So we're expecting a person within a person. So that's not working at all. So let's go back up and see how we got into that trouble. So we have a names person, that's a person type. And we have the name of structure, that's a structure type. Okay, so there'll be a brief pause while I get myself out of hot water. It's always ugly to watch me get out of hot water on the recording. So there'll be a brief pause while I get out of hot water, and I'll be right back. And I am back. And oh boy, was that wrong. That's all I'm going to say. So I think you could have a couple of feelings from that. One is you could go, oh my God, the instructor doesn't even know this stuff. Or you could say, well, you know, the instructor forgets things too, and I ought to be willing to look things up just like him and not feel bad about it and move on. So you can have your choice. I think the latter will make you feel better, but that's that. Okay, so we need a complex type for a person. So let's do that. I'm trying to get the tab. Okay, we have a tab, and we said we were going to have an XS complex type. Name equals person type. Okay, and here's where I went wrong the last time. Okay, is person a sequence? No, it's not a sequence. Okay, it is a simple type. It's called person, and it has just a simple text type. Well, that means you have to do something a little tricky here. You have to say that the complex type has simple content. How do you do that? Well, XS, simple content. Okay? So if you do that, you can say, well, what do I want to do? I'm starting out with a simple content like a string, and I'm going to want to either extend it, annotate it, or restrict it. Oh, I want to extend it because it has an attribute. So oddly enough, it's extended. So we're not saying that we're going to allow more text than the string will, because of course the string will allow any old text. But what we are going to say is, in addition to the string, we're going to allow an attribute. Okay, so we're going to have the string. So the base is the string. Okay, and then after the simple content, we're going to have an XS attribute. When it does this. Now, I'm sorry, I've got it wrong again. This is not inspiring a lot of confidence, but I forgot. Of course, it's the extension that is going to be the attribute, right? So the attribute goes inside the extension. So the order of things here is a little bit different than when we do it on a complex type like a sequence. And here we say attribute name equals URL and type equals string. Now that's an empty element. Okay, so this is, let's sort of review what we have here. We do have a complex type because we need an attribute, okay? But what we have, the way that we get a complex type is to say, well, let's take a simple type like the string and extend it by allowing an attribute named URL that will take strings. All right? So having done that, we can go over to our document and we can validate it again. And we'll see the person has cleared up quite nicely. Okay? We still have a lot of problems on the A tag, okay? And we don't have anything for structure type or unordered list type. All right, so let's get structure type because again, the idea that we would want to clone our definition for person in order to get the definition for structure type. I think, again, that's a good idea and a lazy idea. So instead of person, it's going to be structure. Okay. And it's going to have a URL attribute. So let's save that. And let's go back over and see when we go to validate how the messages look. And we should have fewer of them. Okay. And it's complaining we don't have an unordered list type, and it doesn't like the inside of the paragraph it found, in addition to text, it found an A tag, and it found a break tag too, and it wasn't expecting either of those. So we're going to have to take care of both the A and the break. All right, let's look at this. So back here, inside the paragraph, we have person structure, and we're going to need the A and the break. So let's look at this. Access element. All right. Name equals A. All right. Sorry about that. And let's give it a named type. Okay. So let's say type equals A type. All right. That'll be good. And then let's do a similar thing by saying access element name equals, and let's say BR for break, and let's say type. Well, I'm in the wrong place all of a sudden. Let's say type equals whether we have an empty type, we're going to have to do that all by ourselves. Okay. Well, for right now, let's just call it a BR type. Okay. It's going to put off that problem until later, which is okay. And let's get that down on the next line. Okay. So we've accounted for the fact that we have both A tags and BR tags within the paragraph, right? And we are going to have to define them. Well, the A is going to be pretty easy. The A is going to work a whole lot like structure type and person type. It's just going to have simple content. It's just going to have a string, which is the text that we enclose, which gets turned into the link that gets exposed in the page. And instead of URL, it's going to have an attribute called href. So let's just take this structure type and clone it, and we'll turn that into a type. Shouldn't be too hard. A type, and again, instead of URL, it should be called href. That looks pretty good. So let's take care of that, and let's go back up. Oh, sorry, we didn't get, so what I did is I validated this, and it says we don't have a definition for either unordered list type or BR type, but we knew that, so that's okay. And then let's go back to the document itself and really validate that. And the complaints about A have gone away, but we still have a problem that we don't have a BR type or an unordered list type. Okay, now this brings us to the type definition that we can use for the BR or break element. And it's really funny because I didn't invent the approach that I'm going to use here myself. I took a look at what other people did by Googling it. And the BR element is an interesting element in that it's an empty element that doesn't even include attribute content. It's simply a marker, okay? And I found two ways to model it. One way where you say it's a simple type, and another way where you say it's a complex type. And claiming that it's a complex type seems a little bit backwards to me, because it doesn't even have any text inside of it. So what's complex about that? So I'm going to show you the one that I found for simple type. So we're going to make an XS simple type, and the name is going to be BR. I'm sorry, BR type. BR type. Okay? And now, what are we going to put inside of it? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have to say that it has a restrictions. We're going to say it's a zero-length string. Okay? So it can't hold anything. So we're going to say XS restriction. Okay? And we're going to say that the base is XS string, right? But we're going to say that it can only be 0 characters long. And I know this sounds kind of like a fiction, but this is something we can do. We can say length, value equal 0. Okay? Oh, one of a slash there to take care of that. All right? And that should take care of it right there. Okay? Now, is that Intuitive? No, it wasn't intuitive to me. There's an alternative. Let me just take a look at who I borrowed this from. Dr. Herong Yang, and this is the version 4.11. And you can find him at Herong, Herong, Yang, Yang.com. And he's got a section on declaring empty elements, and he it particularly goes through how to model the BR tag. Okay, so did not invent that myself. All right, so let's save that, and let's go over to the document, and let's try to verify. And the number of complaints are going way down. Let's see, unordered list, and cannot resolve the name A type to a definition component. So we didn't really hook up that A type too well. Oh, I accidentally got rid of A type. Well, we're going to know how to do that. Okay, we said that the A type was a lot like the structure type. So let me undo my maintenance mistake and put the A type back in. So this is going to be an A type. Okay, and remember we changed the name of the attribute to href. Okay, so now we've added A type and BR type. And let's do a save, and let's go over to the document, and we should be down to just the unordered list. Yep, we only have complaints about the unordered list. But let's look at the unordered list and see what's inside an unordered list, just to make sure we don't have any problem. Oh, interestingly, we can have an A inside of an unordered list, at least right now. We've got several A's inside of unordered list. So inside of UL, we have an LI, and inside of LI, we have both text and A. Okay, that looks like something we can handle. So let's do it. Okay, so we don't have an unordered list type, so let's get that. XS complex type. Name equals unordered, can't spell, unordered list type. Okay. Let's undo that mistake and come out one more. All right. And we have a, we are going to have a sequence of LIs. Okay. Let's do a sequence. And again, this is a trivial case of sequence when there's only one thing in the sequence. And I realize that seems a little odd, but it's just one of the fictions that we have here. And so we're going to have an XS element, and that it's going to have a name. Okay. And that name is going to be LI. And it's not just text, so we're going to have to create a custom type for it. And let's call it LI type. Oh, sorry. Type equals LI type. Type equals LI type. and close with the quote. All right. And there we've got that. And of course, we have a red squiggly line under LI type because we don't have a definition for it. Okay, so let's think, is LI type going to be a complex type or a simple type? Well, I'm saying that it's going to be a complex type because it's going to be mixed content. Well, let's try to go back and find a mixed content one that we had before and see if we might be able to, see if we ought to be able to borrow something. Oh, and let's look. We have paragraph type. Now this is really promising because let's look at paragraph type. It allows more than just running text and A link elements. It allows for other things to happen like a person element, a structure element, a link element, A, or a break. You know, I'm thinking that I'd like to be able to have any of those inside of my LI. So let's just borrow the definition we had for paragraph type, and let's make that LI type. Let's simply clone it. All right, that looks good. And let's go back over to the article. And let's validate it. And we have a problem. It says invalid content was found starting with element LI. No child element expected at this point. Let's double click on this and see where we go. So no child element expected at this point. I really don't see what we've done wrong here. But let's close there and let's look at that part of the document and see if we can get some idea about what's gone wrong. And I'm going to make this little area on the left a little smaller so we can see more. And slide us over just a little bit so we can see all the text. So it's somewhere in this LI. It's not expecting some kind of sub-element. So what do we have? Well, we've got running text. We have an A element and an end A. We have another A and an end A. Running text, we have another A and an end A, and we have an end LI. So what's interesting is we have a complaint. And let's mouse over the error. Invalid content was found starting with element LI. No child element is expected at this point. So have we accidentally got an LI within an LI? It's the only thing I can think of. It doesn't really look like we do. Maybe our problem is it's expecting only one LI. Let's go back and look at the LIs. Yes. We never told it that we could have more than one LI. Well, that's not going to work. So let's say that we're going to have at least one. So the default for min-occurs is 1. So that's fine. But max occurs, let's say, unbounded. So we can have as many LIs as we want. So we didn't have an LI within an LI. We had too many in a row, given what we had put into our schema. And let's come back and validate, and document is valid. Okay? So I think it's always a little bit more challenging to start out with the document and come up with the schema afterward, because you are progressively improving the schema, and you're going back to the document and you're trying to validate it. And it's a little harder to see what's broken when you're not really building the document incrementally like we did in the lecture. But with a little experience, you can figure out the errors that it's talking about, like the last one we had where it didn't like the second LI. I came up, it was probably my third idea that it was expecting only one, and then we solved it there. But that's how you do it. And I've got to say that for me, it's probably still a little more intuitive to do the DTD. You know, I've probably used both the XML schema language and the DTD in terms of the number of things I've done with them. I've done maybe a little bit more with the DTD than the schema language, but not much more, if any more. They've been about equal. And I think that one of the things that is true here is that the approach to things in the schema language is a little trickier. And so I find myself having to go back to examples that work. So I find myself going back to example schemas that I did, or doing some Googling and finding recommendations from the authors on the web to solve a problem like the BR, for instance, which I'm not sure I ever modeled that before. Right? So it was sort of interesting to do. It was a lot easier to make that happen in the DTD language, but I think what you really want to know is, with a little bit of searching, you can say, well, what have other people done in order to model this kind of construct? And again, for the BR, I found a guy who seemed fairly authoritative. He had two versions. He had one where we called it a complex type, and one where we called it a simple type. And they both had kind of odd entries in them. And I was convinced by, I thought it would be more straightforward to say that it was a simple type. Okay? So that's how we did it. So you can look forward to the coding exercise that goes with the unit here, in which I'm hoping that you're going to be able to do a similar activity for the document that you're given, and try to take some consolation in some of the challenges that I had. If you have some challenges, that you can get through them, and you just have to pause and look a thing up or two, and you'll be fine. So I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.